Hello, and welcome to my second duology video. This one I'm talking about science fiction duologies that I have not read yet, but plan to. Almost every single one of these I own at least one copy of, but I haven't had a chance to pick it up yet. So to make this video more interesting, I also did a couple of calculations based off of their Goodreads reviews to see how many people went from book 1 to book 2. If you haven't seen my science fiction duologies video from last week, the one where I talk about all of the science fiction duologies I've finished and or have started, definitely be sure to check that out before you pick up your next duology read. So let's talk about these 10 duologies. The first one is a duology called The Succession by Scott Westerfield. This consists of The Risen Empire and Killing World. This is a high-stakes space opera series that deals with an empire of 1,600 worlds, a rescue of a child empress, the fate of the empire at stake, a love story, and so much more. Now, I'm being a little bit non-specific on this one because a lot of the reviews and a lot of the description at the back of the book were not incredibly detailed. This is a foray into adult science fiction, and almost all of the reviews mention how nuanced and complex this particular duology is. That makes me really excited to pick it up, especially since I have read some of his YA series. I believe it's the Pretties and Uglies series. Might be one you have recognized, maybe not. I can also say that the reviews have also said that he has a very satisfactory ending, and that makes me want to pick it up even more. I own the omnibus edition of this duology called The Succession. Definitely make sure you're aware that this is one continuous story into 2 separate books. All the more reason to pick up the omnibus edition. Now, as far as the people on Goodreads leaving reviews who reviewed the first one and went on to review the second one, we have a whopping 68%. Wow, that is a pretty high number of people who went on to read the second book. That really says a lot about how good this duology is, and one that I'm really excited to definitely complete. Next on this list is going to be Peter F. Hamilton's The CommonWealth Saga. This consists of Pandora's Star and Judas Unchained. These are hefty chunks of a book. Oh my gosh, each of these books are so big. This is a space opera duology where a star vanishes and the ship, the Second Chance, is sent to investigate the reason why. But it's opposed by a cult who believes that the human race is manipulated by an alien race known as the Starflyers. Now, what's really interesting about this is that this series has very mixed reviews. A lot of people like it, but a lot of people didn't. Of the negative reviews on Goodreads, a lot of people complained about the length and the fact that it was very slow pacing. It seems that the first book is mostly world building without a lot of action. There is apparently quite a lot of sexism in this book with some cringeworthy sex scenes. Of the people who completed it and left reviews for the first book in the series, 75% of them went on to read the second book. That is a huge amount. And what I've discovered from the reviews is that apparently that's because it ends on quite a cliffhanger, and most people who put the time and energy into that first book have to go ahead and finish out the story. Now, that's obviously not true for everyone, but it definitely has me intrigued. Now, you may be asking yourself, if this has such mixed reviews and the pacing is a problem, why are you going to read this? And the answer is, I kind of view this series as one of those endurance tests that so many people are fond of. Almost all science fiction fans, if you've been around the fandom long enough, will encounter Peter F. Hamilton's work, and a lot of people recommend it. It's almost like an endurance test. The way that people who hate running view completing a marathon so they can train and check it off and complete the marathon and then move on and never run again, that's kind of how I view the CommonWealth Saga. It seems like I want to see if I have the endurance, if I can finish the series, both books 1 and 2, and that way I can have an opinion on them. So let me know in the comment section down below if you've read this series, but I gotta tell you, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna at least try it because I own book 1 and I wanna see if I have what it takes to finish it. Next is going to be a duology by Greg Bear called The Forge of God. This consists of the book by the same name, A Forge of God, and Anvil of the Stars. First book starts with unexplained phenomena popping up around the globe, like a mountain appearing that was never there before. And as the series goes on, it becomes apparent somehow that the end of the world is nigh. The planet begins to rip itself apart. This book is a lot about why that happens, but it's also about how the people respond and whether or not people escape. The second book seems to deal with the aftermath of book 1, also was written before the first book ever came out. So that's kind of an interesting fun fact about this duology. It seems like more people, though, have still read the first book rather than the second book. A whopping 43% of them move on to read book 2 from book 1. And it seems like the second book has better, more satisfied readers than the first one. All of this being said, I'm really intrigued about Greg Bear as an author. He seems to be a hard sci-fi guy, and this is one that I happened to find the first book in the series, and without knowing anything else, picked it up. So it is one that I'm going to try my hand at some time, hopefully this year. The next duology series is also by Greg Bear, and that is the Darwin's Radio series. This one starts with Darwin's Radio and continues on to Darwin's Children. This is one of his more famous duologies, probably because Darwin's Radio is a Hugo nominee. This is going to be a hard biology thriller, which is not something I get to say very often and definitely has me intrigued. The first book follows a virus hunter. Didn't know that was a legitimate career, but apparently it is. Who starts investigating a new disease that pops up around the world, infecting only pregnant women. And the disease results in miscarriages. However, he encounters a bunch of other scientists and they go about investigating this disease and the cause and the cure and discover some strange mystery sequences in our DNA that date back to prehistoric times. Now, this book series seems to be more of a big idea series than it is character heavy, and that seems to be pretty tried and true for most of Greg Bear's work, and I don't think this series is anything different than what he usually does. Now, being that I'm a big ideas kind of girl, I'm really excited to pick this one up. I definitely own the very first book, and so will be picking this one up. It is one of my 24 books for 2024. What's really interesting is a lot of the negative reviews seem to quote a lot of the graphic descriptions of miscarriages as one of the reasons why they had to put the book down. It does also seem to border a little bit into horror, so if that's not your vibe, you should know that ahead of time. The second book does take place 11 years after the event of the first one, and it does have a 34% continuation rate. So take that for what it is. Definitely consider checking this out, though, if you're interested in a hard biology thriller. The next duology is going to be the Smythe duology. This is a duology by Gene Wolfe, and it starts with The Borrowed Man and continues on with Interlibrary Loan. This book is taking place in the future where AI, robots, and clones all exist now. And we follow our main character, E.A. Smythe, who is a clone of a deceased mystery writer. He is checked out from the library by the daughter of a billionaire who is looking into the death of her father. And of course, they have to put their heads together to try to solve the mystery. Now, she's checked out this man because one of the most prized possessions her father ever had was a physical copy book, which don't exist very often anymore, of this author's mystery thriller. They're trying to figure out the mystery and put it together through the series. And apparently the second book continues on with the same character, but a different mystery. Now, interestingly enough, both of these books are actually rather short, especially for Gene Wolfe. And if you don't already know, Gene Wolfe is the author who wrote the Book of the New Sun, which starts with Shadow of the Torturer. Now, the real reason why I'm interested in this is because I epic failed the Book of the New Sun. It was a book that I just couldn't get into. I finished Shadow of the Torturer, but I didn't understand what was going on. And I'm kind of hoping that this duology outside of his main series is something that will help me get used to Gene Wolfe's writing. And as with all of his books, it's never that simple. So I know this isn't just a straight murder mystery. Instead, I really want to get used to his writing style and maybe in the future be able to go back and try his Book of the New Sun series and actually be able to understand it. Here's hoping. Now, we have a 36% continuation rate from the first book to the second, and the second book is relatively recent. I mean, it was published in 2020, so I'm kind of excited about it. I accidentally picked up Interlibrary Loan, the second book in the series, before I realized it was a duology and I had to go back and buy Borrowed Man first. But I'm hoping that this will provide me with an awesome taste test for Gene Wolfe. We'll see how I do. The next duology in this video is going to be the New Springtime Duology by Robert Silverberg. This one starts with At Winter's End and continues on with the book New Springtime. This book starts with the long ago Earth that already went through a fiery apocalypse leading to an ice age that everyone calls the Long Winter. Luckily, some humans have survived by digging down into the center of the Earth and are now emerging as the Ice Age is finishing. However, as they emerge, we start to discover that they are in tribes and they have regressed back to tribal society. And one of their goals is to fulfill the prophecy of taking over and inheriting the new Earth. Of course, a lot of knowledge has been lost and many things of technology. This is a book that is really intriguing to me, this series, because it was one of Robert Silverberg's first science fiction novels. So this is a series that I have not yet gotten either the first or the second book from. It is something I keep an eye out for, but it doesn't seem to be available in the wild. I think I'm gonna have to order this series if I'm gonna read it. Now, I am a sucker for far-flung future that have regressed. That is definitely one of my favorite tropes of science fiction. So this one definitely made me intrigued when I first saw the premise. And I'm always curious about Silverberg's work, especially since he used to be an erotic author and somehow turned science fiction. But that does also make me hesitate to pick up some of his early stuff because I'm not quite sure he made that transition very cleanly, if you know what I'm saying. This duology had a 37% return rate, but only 853 people have even reviewed the first book. So it's definitely not something that is going to be easy to find. All right, moving on to some more modern stuff, we have the Outriders duology by J. Posey. This consists of the Outriders and the Sungrazers. And it seems to be a typical military science fiction duology where we have an top secret elite military agency known as the Outriders who get a new member, which is our main character, right at a time when military bases are targeted by an unknown enemy. We also have rising political tensions between Earth and Mars in a sort of pseudo new Cold War. Now, this is a rather unoriginal military science fiction trope, but I'm not off-put by it, and it has a lot of really, really good reviews. Something that made me really look at it a little bit harder is that the author is very well known for writing fantastic video game scripts, which makes me excited about some of the military fighting scenes. I know it's going to be well paced and it has really good reviews. I'm always looking for a new palate cleansing novel or duology, and this one seems to fit the bill. So I am pretty excited to check this one out. Next, we have probably one of the most popular books on this list, and that is Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. This consists of Jurassic Park and Lost World, and wow, does this book series have the most number of reviews on Goodreads. It's almost 1 million. You guys, it's very impressive. However, for such a popular first book, only 16% of people moved on to the second book. Now, if you're not familiar with what this story is about, all you need to know is that we have cloning technology combined with dinosaur DNA, and what's gonna happen? Of course, they're gonna create epic dinosaurs today, which are inserted into an amusement park for money. Now, of course, that sounds like a great business opportunity, but really, should we have done that? I grew up on this movie and absolutely loved it, and all the reviews pretty much say that the book is way better than the movie. So I want to read it. I am really surprised at how few people go on to the second book, and it does seem to be a little bit less of a crowd pleaser than the first one. But if I really like the first one and I'm not too off-put by the fact that I already know the ending, I think I might give this one a try. We'll see how it works out, especially because it's Michael Crichton. Oh, it's also worth noting that a lot of the people who read The Lost World were very surprised at how different it was than the movie. So it looks like Hollywood strikes again and did a little bit more or less than they should have with that second story.
Hang on, this is gonna be bad.
So hopefully more to come on that soon. The last two duologies are gonna be novellas. This is for those of you out there who are both commitment phobes and also don't wanna read long books. So let's start with the Expert System Duology by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I own both of these books and eventually plan on reading all of Adrian Tchaikovsky's work. However, this particular one is a combination of primitive world with advanced technology. Kind of Ferngully-esque, if you will. Our main character, Handry, is banished from his home tree into a world at large. This is essentially a death sentence from what he understands, so he is forced to do a lot of things that he wasn't prepared to do and face a lot of truths about his world and his culture. I'm really interested and excited to read these two because Adrian Tchaikovsky does a really good job of walking the fine line between fantasy and science fiction and really displaying how sufficiently advanced technology can be mistaken for magic. He does a really good job with these novellas, and so these two are just a duology. I own both of them and I have no excuse. I gotta read them, and hopefully I gotta read them soon. His continuation rate with this novella series is actually 44%, which I consider to be pretty good. I'm definitely gonna be checking these out sometime soon. It looks like the second book, The Expert Systems Champion, is taking place with the same characters about 10 years after the first book. Then we're gonna move on to Our Lady of Endless Worlds. This is by Lena Rather, and it consists of Sisters of the Vast Black and Sisters of the Forsaken Stars. This takes place with interstellar space nuns. Yes, I'm serious, that is true. Apparently, the Order of St. Rita has sent missionaries out to do good works. These people who are on a living spaceship have several souls within their care that get threatened by some unknown force. And as they try to discover their mystery and keep their passengers safe, they discover that the danger may be from the government or even from their own religious order. So this is definitely a book that looks like it's going to be pretty action-packed and have quite a few ethics and dilemmas involved in it. What is great about this series is that a lot of the reviews said that while they were a little bit off-put by some of the religious themes in the summary, that this story was actually well plotted and that religion was just a plot method rather than a main focus of the story. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how this author puts these themes together and what this general story is. The continuation rate, though, is a little bit less than what I would have expected it to be, and it's only a 26%. So luckily, I only own the first of the series, but we'll see how I feel after I finish that book. And that does it for all of the duologies. If you have any other duologies that you know about that I haven't mentioned in either of these two videos, please, please, please mention them in the comments section down below, because I'm always interested in more duologies. I really think that this is an untapped potential area. Until next time, you guys.